call to order the meeting of the Water Commissioners on February 5th of 2024.
All right.
Right,
Do I have, this just all goes together, right? I don't have to read the
Yeah.
rest of
you
it?
don't have to read it.
No, then we're just
all
gonna
recorded, it's all there, we just moved
We're
on.
gonna move over to Richard.
And
I'll
Rich
go to
has
Richard, yes.
looks like we have a public fee hearing.
surprise.
Oh, yeah, do we have to
Do
read?
we need to open a public
Oh, do we need to
hearing?
open the public
Is
hearing?
it a separate hearing? Yeah.
I can read that if you want.
Just reread it, but with water.
With
Or do you want me to
water?
read it, or you got it?
Yeah, sure, I'll read it.
Thanks, Jerry.
The Eastham Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, the Eastham Water Commissioners will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 5th, 2024 at 5:30 PM. The Eastham Town Hall in the Earl Mountain Room, 2500 State Highway, and by remote participation on the proposed FY25 increases for water usage. A list of the proposed changes will be available at Town Hall and Administration Office, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on the town's website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Okay, yes, I can read.
Right, well, we presented you with some scenarios a few meetings back. Nothing's changed, so I'm not going to go through them unless you have questions, but I'll re-summarize them. Basically, we're looking at a minimum of a $600,000 operating fund budget and setting aside of $150,000 a year for capital plan for various projects, but namely tank painting being the most timely and near-term item. And so a total of $750,000. The current rate scenario provides about $630,000. Scenario 1, which was just simply an increase of 10% on the rates, and an increase of the base rate from 96 to 125 provided $737,000. Our scenario 2, which provided the 10% increase, the 125 base fee, the 10% increase, and added a new tier for over 25,000, provides an estimated 770,000. Our scenario 3, the $125 base fee, 10% increase, add a top tier over 25,000, and drop the lowest bottom tier with a restructuring of the middle tiers provided 829,000. And then scenario 4 was the exact same as scenario 3, except changing the base fee from 125 to 100, which raised an estimated just under 775,000, and that was our recommended scenario.
Really?
Or whichever one you'd like,
Or
Yes.
3, or 3.
or something different altogether.
My guess is 3 is Jackie.
Yeah,
Well, I think we have some issues because we're going out to bid for our water operations contract, and we're not sure what the price of that's going to be, so that's a new expense.
And I
Yeah.
guess
so-
the good news, so to speak, under that scenario is if we don't need the full amount, it does stay retained within our enterprise fund, and that would be used likely for capital capital replacements in the future, which will minimize borrowing costs, which will save money long-term.
And I think the other thing I think we have to do is, so we're in year 8? Are we in year 8? Of the water system? We haven't had the users have been growing steadily, but we have not changed these rates since before we started offering water to people. So I think we do need to look at it at least every other year, I would think.
Yeah. Especially as the system grows, and I think, Jackie, unless you think differently, we'll hold off now, but we will probably be back at some point in the relatively near term coming up with a plan to institute an additional charge, perhaps like a system or
Hookup fee,
development fee or connection fee.
connection fee, yeah.
For those that aren't connected. It will,
Right.
right now, it doesn't cost you anything extra to connect, but if you are
Down the
going to
road it will.
not connect and bypass the capital recovery portion of this fee, that's why we would charge a connection
I
fee
think
in the
that makes
future.
sense.
Yep,
Can I should, you're not supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to, so this could be a little tricky, but if we go forward and connect Wellfleet and they pay the extra system development fee, would that go, the annual fee, would that go into the Water Enterprise Fund as well? So it might help us build up capital, or no?
Well, that's good, we'll have to think about that one, because the reason we charge the extra fee to reimburse the
Taxes.
taxpayers, allocating it to Wellfleet on the same basis as was allocated to our taxpayers.
That's right.
So we, but on the other hand, maybe we just direct it there anyway, because we know we have a need and we'd have to borrow the money otherwise, so.
Yeah, yeah.
That's Wednesday.
Anyway, I'm
Well,
just letting you know. that-
So what you're looking for today, if you would like,
What scenario?
is us to pick one of these scenarios you would
Yes.
appreciate. Now, scenario one doesn't give us the funds that you're shooting for, but,
And the reason why we're recommending either 3 or 4 is it does modify the tier structure. The first tier is extremely low, and you're not familiar with too many towns that have a tier that low, and it's, I think, to the benefit of perhaps seasonal users. And then on the other end, adding a top tier over 25,000 to really increase the rate for those
yes.
primarily commercial users that have a substantial impact on their system.
And me, that would be me too.
Yeah, because you have a leaky pool.
The
Well, whatever-
The DEP would be grateful if we
Yeah,
raised
one
that.
one of the, I want to start with a comment that we had not quite mandatory, but close to mandatory for hookup for water within that zone around the landfill.
No, it was mandatory,
It
absolutely.
was mandatory?
But the town covered.
Yeah, the town covered that, yes, that's right. But everyone else that's joined after that has done it voluntarily. Now, it may be that they have saltwater intrusion or other things in their water, but it was a voluntary move, and I think we have at least half the town still hasn't hooked up. I just don't like taking the bottom tier and jumping it from $1.80 to $5.25. I just don't like that, which is why I like scenario 2, scenario 2 over 3 or 4. I just, that jump for people who volunteered to come in is pretty hard. And if we want to try and encourage, I'd love to try and encourage vacation homes to join, hook up to the water, and I think jacking it up is hard. Jamie?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna, my opinion differs.
That's okay, that's
yeah.
why there's not one of us. right?
Yeah. I think that it would bring us more in line with our surrounding communities to go with scenario 3 or 4, which is always something that I'm looking at. Additionally, we're looking at the greater benefit for the community. And if we have this fee structure that's kind of, benefiting, your seasonal use home, I mean,
That's not-
most likely those are going to be someone who already has a primary residence. That's not a primary residence water rate. That's someone whose second or third home is that. So I personally am not too conflicted in merging those two tiers. It's not a tremendous jump for that individual, considering they're using such little water at that point. But it does streamline the process for water for us, and especially moving forward, it makes us more in line with surrounding communities as our water system grows.
I think the incentivization, Jerry, would likely be on the connection fee.
Right.
And having a timing or an ability to waive or
Yeah, no,
or step up
I
a
understand.
connection fee.
It just is a huge, the lower water user gets hit with a huge increase. That's all. As it was it just hits me in the wrong way, but it's just Jerry. So it's okay. Now, could you, does the adjustment going from 7,500 in a quarter to 12,500, changing it from 7,500 to 15,000. Does that, could you change that into, just a question, into scenario 2, make those changes that you have in the tier 3 and 4 into scenario 2? Would that bring in more funds or less?
I think the problem is, in scenario 3, you're getting, so it's all 1 gallon to 7,500 gallons, where if you're keeping it on scenario 2,
No, I'm looking at 3 and 4.
They're the
Making-
same.
you'd have a 3,750, then a 7,500, and then a 7,500 to 15.
Right.
So, yes, we could do that for scenario.
But I don't know if
2.
that brings in more or less money. I guess it brings in a little bit,
Well, it depend, you know, it's not an easy question to answer. That's why I have the water data, because, you know, or is everybody using 12,490 gallons, or are they using,
no.
you know what I mean?
But
So,
you know, looking at it, it would bring in less money, my error, because you would be paying
lower rate for a
a
longer
lower
ban.
rate for the last 2,500 gallons in tier 3, and a lower rate and a lower, no, but you would be paying yeah.
It depends on how much people are using. If you're using a lot over that new
Okay,
tier, then you would pay more on that higher tier. but-
It wouldn't be a huge change anyway. Okay, thank you. Any other,
And Amy's got her hand up.
Amy, do you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with both Jerry and Jamie in that, I'm a low water user. Our bills, look at the comparisons of Jackie, and I think Arts was on there, and Mary Shaw and Wes. And I'm down in the lower end with Mary Shaw.
Yeah.
And even in scenario 3, I'm talking $80 a year more. So it's not outrageous. It is a bigger percentage than the higher users, but it's really not that large of an increase. And then to Rich's point about connection fee, once the system is completely finished, those who haven't chosen to hook up, should have to pay some sort of a
Yes.
connection fee.
Right.
So that will be
That's all.
sort of another,
Because we're
stream
going to,
that
basically because we're going to have to pay it. We're not going to have a water department. We're going to contract out for services, and we're going to have to pay for those connections.
Right.
I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah,
totally.
and in addition, I think, if we put in a policy, say that anytime a house sells, that they have to connect.
Well,
Certain
that's-
things like the triggers. But, that's something to talk about later. But I see that as something that makes sense. I mean, I think it makes sense for someone buying a house that they're going to want, because I don't, in years past, it's been quite shocking, the people that don't realize that they have a well. Like when the, power goes out, people used to show up at town hall and said, why don't I have water?
Oh, really?
And we're like, well, do you have power? And they're like, no. And like, well, that's why you have a well. I'm like, what? I don't have town water. It's shocking that some people don't realize things like that. But, I think in this day and age, I think, it's something for a sale, it's a minimal cost on top of a sale to require them to
At this point, yeah,
probably
No, you're not
seller,
wrong, Amy.
really.
Yeah.
Nothing
you're right.
under
Yeah.
$500,000.
If we get a wastewater system to measure, you need probably to be hooked up to town water as well, as we come along looking at that. That's a point.
Can I
Suzanne,
ask the question? So you mentioned that we haven't looked at the rates, the water rates in a while as well?
Ever.
Ever, literally ever. And so,
This will be the first time since we created the water rates.
yeah, so I feel like that's part of the pain of the big, like having not done it
Yeah.
incrementally over the past couple of years as you then get a big jump. And I guess the best we can do is say, we're sorry, and we're going to revisit it
Every other year.
every other
year.
year, so the change will be much more gradual.
Yeah.
And I'm into 3 or 4, maybe 3 to be conservative about it.
If you did go for 3, if these numbers bear out as far as the amount it generates and the budget stays within reason, then that might soften what you have to do in the future too, right? So.
Right,
That's true.
Right, yeah.
with our.
I
Just
have-
one more addition, when you do make a motion on one of these scenarios, if you could also please add to the motion the fire suppression fee that you already voted on as part of the DPW. I just want you to take that vote as water commissioners as well.
So what was that? What is the water suppression, what did that, fire suppression fee? I wasn't really sure what that was.
You want to jump up, Kim?
Thanks.
I'll let Kim answer this one.
I was like, is this?
Yeah, she's had to sit here the whole time.
I was like,
She
is
might
this
as
like
well
Exactly,
expended?
exactly.
So the fire suppression fee is for anyone who has not connected to domestic, but they connected their fire suppression. There is only one user in town that this
Yeah.
applies to. So they connected their commercial business to
But the water-
fire, but not domestic. So if they were to have a fire, this fee covers the water that would be used. So it's a quarterly fee, so it would be
This was only
$300
for
per
one.
quarter.
So basically, the business hooked up for fire suppression, but didn't hook up
Yeah.
for the.
They cooked up for
Consumption.
fire
So
suppression, but
let's,
not water.
let's back up. We don't charge for fire suppression water, so if your house is burning down, we are going to put it out. We are not charging you money for
Yeah.
that water,
Right, this
right?
is a specific situation.
But when,
Jackie.
the dilemma that we had is that we had a huge commercial user who
Right.
hooked up to just fire and not to, so we're not collecting fees from that person, so we created this new fee to cover
They
that.
have the benefit of the system.
Okay,
So they're not
Okay.
paying water usage fees on a regular basis.
right.
Oh, okay, all right. It said fire suppression fee, and it was like under a bunch of dump things, and I was like, what are you returning to the dump? That's
We're
this.
going to move it
Okay,
underwater.
all right,
All right,
thank you.
okay. Well,
I mean, if we're gonna do it, we might as well.
Agree.
let's have a motion. Any motion from anyone?
I move that we approve scenario 3
I'll
for
second.
water rates and the fire
and
suppression
suppression
fee.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll go to a vote. Amy?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Yes,
Jamie?
Aye.
And I am a no.
No.
Okay. I wanted to, you don't have
I
to
know.
be unanimous all the
I
time.
know, I
We
know.
smile,
I
we
mean,
joke, we're
sometimes
good.
it's nice where you're like, oh, I can still.
We're all right, okay. Oh, I'm not
Oh,
the chair,
yeah,
you are.
okay.
You're
Do we
the
have any
chair.
other matters for the Board of Water Commissioners? Other matters, business correspondence?
No.
No?
No. I move we
Motion.
adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Jerry made the motion and
We'll say Amy second.
Amy seconded it. Amy,
Aye.
Jerry,
Yes.
Jamie,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We are adjourned.